Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled, "Neighbors constantly trespassed on my property. To use my pool without permission, I built a huge fence." I am a 26-year-old female who lives on her own. About a year ago, I received an inheritance that was a blessing to me. I saved about 1/4 of it, which was still a pretty hefty amount. With the amount I did not save, I was able to pay off some debt and move into a new house. It helped me stop living paycheck to paycheck, and I was forever grateful that I had come across this inheritance. The house I bought was beautiful, and it felt like a safe place to come back to after work or being out for the day. I never felt like this when I was living in my crappy apartment. And another big win, the house came with a pool. I never considered myself a swimmer, but the pool was calling my name every single day. It helped me relax and actually lose quite a bit of weight. If the weather let me swim every day, I definitely would. However, there was one major issue: the family next door. Shortly after I moved in, the couple next door came knocking on my door, introducing themselves to me. Their names were Mitch and Kim, and while they seemed friendly at first, it soon became clear that they almost felt entitled to my property. Kim had told me over a couple of cups of coffee that the previous owner was an elderly couple and that they would let the kids come over and play in the pool. The couple's grown children had moved to different states all across the US, and they did not like the quiet. It made sense if they were lonely and missing their kids. It gave them some sort of companionship. However, that was not the case for me. There was nothing more that I loved than being able to come home and relax in the peace and quiet. Besides this, I'm a pretty introverted person. There is a reason why I have only had a couple of close friends I like to spend time with. And not only that, but I just felt slightly uncomfortable at someone coming into my backyard whenever they wanted to. I know they were just kids, but like I said, I really value my quiet and alone time. I politely let the parents know that I was uncomfortable with it, and while it was not anything personal, how could it be? I did not really know them yet, I just had introverted tendencies. However, I was willing to compromise slightly and told them they could come over occasionally as long as they did not take advantage of the compromise. The only condition was that I had to be in the backyard or in the pool, as I really did not feel comfortable with anyone being on my property without my presence. Well, no shocker, they did take advantage. Cut to a couple of weeks later, when the kids were out of school for summer break. Every time I was out in my pool, it was only a matter of minutes before the kids were coming over to swim. Even if I had friends or family members over, they were there. I tried to be understanding because they were just kids, but it seemed like Mitch and Kim were not doing anything to prevent this, or they did not even explain to the kids that they were allowed to come over occasionally. I dealt with it for a while, except I started getting really irritated when Mitch and Kim would come over to swim as well. At this point, it really felt like they were trespassing on my property. On one day in particular, Mitch came over by himself when my best friend and I were spending the afternoon hanging out by the pool. It already felt uncomfortable being as that we were two females alone. It should not have had to feel uncomfortable in my own house, but it gets even worse. When I was getting out of the pool, Mitch made a gross comment about how well I filled out my bikini. This was the last straw for me. I immediately let him know that he needed to leave because my friend and I were going out for the night. I did not miss the way he eyed both of us as he walked back to his house. I started discussing with my friend what I could do to stop this. I was not a very confrontational person, but I needed to stop this. She suggested that I build a fence with a gate so that only people who would have a key to the gate would be able to enter the backyard. I was also planning on getting a dog, so I wanted to make sure that my pet would be safe. Well, cut to about a week after, when my friends and brother came over to help me start digging holes for privacy hatches and installing the fence. Kim ran over right away and saw what was going on. She immediately started questioning me and said that the fence would make it harder for the kids to come over and play in the pool. I told her that I was aware and that this was the whole point of putting up the fence. She started pulling some fake tears and nearly choked up when she told me that, "You are going to deprive the kids of our pool." Now, as I said, I'm not a confrontational person, but in this instance I was. I let her know that it was not our pool, but that it was my pool. I told her how I said in the beginning the kids could come over occasionally and how they took advantage of that. Not only that, but so did her and her husband. She was not happy to hear this, and I let her know that my friend and I were not happy to hear Mitch make gross comments about us in our bikinis. She was livid. But guess what? Now I am enjoying my pool without my neighbors taking advantage or gawking at me. Oh, and they will also not speak to me anymore either. Win-win. And as you know, Ripe Stars, more often than not, fences make really good neighbors, especially in this case. However, I'm curious, if you would be in OP situation and some neighbor would constantly trespass on your property to make use of your pool, what would you have done? Let us know in the comments, and while you're at it, I would really appreciate it if you could also post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support the channel. Thank you so much in advance. And the next one is titled Parking Revenge. 3 days before Christmas and the shopping centers are full of frantic people with frayed tempers. I was just grabbing some essentials and leaving as quickly as I could, only I could not leave because some bloke who was waiting for my spot had stopped his car so close to mine that I did not have enough room to get out. So, once I had loaded my groceries into the boot, I said to him, "Sorry mate, are you waiting to park here?" "Well, I would not be if you're ducking, hurry up and leave," he yelled back. I locked my car again, walked across the road and had a coffee. Duck you, you miserable old cow. Duck you. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I am sure you can relate to this. Whenever anyone goes shopping during Christmas, one thing is for certain. It is pretty stressful and absolutely annoying to deal with people, even if you are just a customer. I can't imagine how it is if you are working in customer service and have to deal with people during the Christmas rush. It must be a nightmare. The next one is titled Parents of the Year Award goes to, posted by user SnuggleMeBuns on r/ripe stories. Hey Ripe and fans, I believe I have typed up this story once before under Tales from the Front Desk subreddit, but I'm a recent fan of Ripe and felt like sharing my story here with you all. I, 33 female, have been working for the same hotel company for over 10 years now, and this happened back when I was maybe a year at my current location a few years ago. Back then I was covering the night shift twice a week, so the main night auditor could have days off. One night I get a call from a female asking if we have jacuzzi rooms, and I tell her that we do. She asks a couple of normal questions before asking, "Female, does the room come with anything else?" Me, "The room comes with a mini fridge, microwave, coffee maker and Wi-Fi." Female, "I know, I mean, does it come with anything else special in the room? You know what I mean, right?" Me, "I'm sorry ma'am, I don't. Do you have something specific in mind?" Suddenly a male voice speaks up. Male, "Does it have mirrors all over the room or around the jacuzzi?" Both start giggling. Me, staying professional, "The jacuzzi rooms do have 2 wall mirrors in the corner where the jacuzzi is located in the room." Male, "Yeah, but does it have mirrors on the ceiling too?" Me, "No, I'm sorry, we don't have something like that in any of our rooms." Female, "Do you come with the room?" She giggles again in a way that makes me suspect it might be some sort of prank, but I continue anyways. Me, "No, we don't provide that sort of service here." Female, "Why not, OP? We want you to join us. We are paying good money for this room, so you should come along with it too." Me, "The costs of your stay only cover the room, amenities and breakfast." Female, "What if I give you a tip?" Again, we don't provide any services that would require any employees to come along with your room. That's not good enough, OP. I demand that you come with the room and let us do anything we want to you. Me, "I'm sorry ma'am, but if this conversation continues the way it is, I will have to hang up the line and cancel completing the reservation." Then both of them proceed to call me names, and so I hang up. They call the hotel again, I answer because I cannot see the call info until the line is answered, and they call me names again, and I hang up once again. They wait a bit before calling a third time, and this time they take things into a more serious subject. Female: "You know that since we looked up your hotel, we know where you are located, right? We are going to come over there and you won't know it's us. We will find an excuse for you to enter our room and we are going to beat you up, tie you up, and I'm going to watch my boyfriend screw you while I hold a knife to your throat, and I'm going to laugh in your face while he does it." She keeps going on in this manner for a bit, and I try and write down the phone number so I can give it to my boss and the cops. I only got part of it down before she hung up. I called the cops in case they came or called again, but I had no names or anything from them because we never got that far during the first phone call. While I waited, I told my boyfriend and Discord what was going on and how worried I was because they were right that there was no telling if they would actually follow through with their threat, and I truly would not see it coming. The cops came, but they admitted that they could not really do anything, which I expected anyways. The boyfriend called a friend of ours and had him drive my BF to my hotel, and he hung out with me for the rest of my shift to make sure nothing would happen, and I did not get any more calls from them the rest of the night. My BF came with me for the next few night shifts to make sure I was safe since he was not working at that time, and it helped me feel a lot safer since I'm literally the only employee here during the night. My other employees reported multiple calls during multiple shifts of someone looking to speak with me, and I confirmed with everyone that if it is someone I know, they would not be calling the hotel, they would call my phone or my BF to reach me. They called for weeks, either asking for me directly or just hanging up when someone else would answer, and if they did call during one of my shifts, they would berate me and keep telling me how they would kill me at my job in a random hotel room, that if I was a mother they would screw with my children too. I have no kids, but they tried to act like they knew I had one because they claimed they had been to my hotel and I talked about my kid. I became paranoid and anxious around guests that sounded like them because their accents were very clear, which also wrecked me hard with guilt feeling that way, but I was just very worried about my own life. I had never thought about how someone could freely choose to do the threats they gave me up until that point, and it was just a very real threat in my mind because of it. I have to admit, they got to me. When this had happened, I was freshly out of an abusive relationship, and the type of things they were saying to me got to me mentally and easily. I have more of a backbone now, or I like to think that I do. Anytime they would call, I would write down the phone number shown on the ID. I got a different number each time, so my guess was that maybe they were using different cell numbers or landlines, and each day it seemed like there were similar numbers as the night before. The cops would later confirm that they must have been using an app to change their caller ID number, so they could not pinpoint who was actually making the calls, so they could not do anything to help. I did figure out that they must have had the cops come to their place at some point because they yelled at me about calling the cops, but that the cops could not figure out which household they had talked to, since they had talked to a few different families. My boss never changed anything to make me feel more secure during the night. None of the front desk doors can actually be locked to protect us if something was to happen, and the only thing I could use was a 2x4 long stick of wood to wedge the door to prevent it from opening, but my boss gave the all clear to my BF hanging around during my nightly shifts. I tried everything I could to make them stop. I tried hanging up every time I heard either of them, slamming the phone on the counter to hurt their ears, talking back to them even though my hands were shaking. Most of the time it was both of them, sometimes it was the only female, and fairly early on it would be the both of them plus their own toddler son. I noticed that very rarely it would only be the male, and if it was only him, he would call a lot less often than if the female was around. I thought it was extremely sad that not only were they terrorizing some random girl for refusing to have relations with them, but that they would even think to include their own son in the matter. Eventually I had an idea. Anytime it was just a male calling my hotel, I would try and reason with him or guilt trip him. Since his calls were a lot more mild, I figured if I had any chance to make them stop, he would be my answer. Me: "Thank you for calling hotel. How can I help you?" Male: "Still got those jacuzzi rooms?" Laughs at me. Me, you should be ashamed of yourself. You're a father, you should not be teaching your son to be treating others like this. Don't you realize you are setting up your son for failure? You are teaching your son that it is okay to think other people are below him, that he can say and treat anyone any way he wants. Don't you see that this is going to get him in a real bad bind later in life when he gets older? He hangs up and calls back after a few minutes. Me, you are teaching your son this is okay to do. Isn't the goal of being a parent to give our kids the best chance to succeed in life? To have a better life than our own? Do you think you are showing him right now that it is going to give him the best chances in life later on? Male, shut up. Kid, yeah, shut up. Male, shh, stop that, go over there. Me, you know that this is going to lead him down a road to crime. Male, I don't care. Me, I think we both know that you do care. And he hung up. I pretty much kept along the same line. Any time he called without her, he would talk less and less, and if it was both the female and the male, he would speak up once or twice but less aggressive. They went from 10 calls a night to 5 calls and then 1 or 2 and barely say a word, but I could tell it was him when he did call because I could hear the kid in the background. After a certain point, it seemed like he was actually listening to what I was saying about their son's future. And I would tell him that he needs to take his son away from a woman like her so their son could have a chance at life. Finally, after months of them calling and nobody doing anything to help me, they both stopped calling the hotel. Maybe she got bored, maybe he listened and left her, or maybe he got his stuff together and convinced her to stop. The whole event caused me to lose sleep, my sanity, and have temporary guilt over being fearful of who might be staying at my hotel. And I gotta say, Ripe Stars, I feel really bad for OP in this story. However, it is such a bizarre story, I just cannot understand why people would do this. This goes far beyond an amusing prank call or something. It sounds like the two really just wanted to terrorize OP for some reason. And the last one is titled, Cop Tries to Shame Me, I Complied with the Shame. Note, the story is sad and I have sympathy for the victims, but I don't feel like a bad guy. 2 layers of compliance. And guys, a little bit of a trigger warning. This story sort of deals with racial issues, so if you don't like these sorts of stories, then I suggest to turn off the video now. Either way, years ago I lived in a very Hispanic neighborhood, vaguely relevant information, with a lot of young children. They were very loud and screamed constantly during all hours of the day and night, not just giggle, playing screams, but blood-curdling horror screams, all the time. One day I get a knock at my door and see 2 blue-shirt police officers, a white guy and a Hispanic woman. They ask me if I've seen anything strange, creepers, uncomfortable situations, etc. Things have been pretty normal, and say as much. They proceed to tell me that a little girl is missing and if I had heard scream or struggle. I let them know that the children scream every day and constantly, so I would not have paid attention to any particular scream. That is when the Hispanic officer lost it. She got in my face about racist people not caring about the neighborhood and the community and for not calling the police when I heard a child scream. So I agreed to dial 911 at every child scream from that point on. Within 3 days I had to call 911 at least 15 times. Each time I explained it was relevant to case XXX with officer, the Hispanic lady, that I should report a child screaming in the neighborhood. Eventually I got a call from a superior officer about abusing 911. I agreed and was told to contact the Hispanic officer directly with any other information regarding the investigation. Malicious compliance level 2. Now I was authorized to call the Hispanic officer directly, day or night, when I had information regarding the investigation. And I did. Every scream, she got a phone call. 2 in the morning and kids are screaming. Guess who else gets to wake up? Morning officer Hispanic lady. She tries to get me in trouble for harassing her, but I had a nice trail of documentation with 911 and her own supervisor to always keep her informed of screaming children. To help everyone feel a little better, the little girl was kidnapped by her uncle and found safely in another state. Some edits to help. Malicious compliance level I ended after the first weekend and malicious level compliance number 2 ended by the 2nd week. More than once, witness car accidents, questions about domestic violence, etc. I've been given direct contact information by the officers. Though in this case I was given the business contact by the other officer. The white male partner during the initial encounter did nothing. I could only tell he was alive because he blinked. He was a non-issue. I probably was too casual about dismissing children screaming, but it was the officer who decided I was ignoring 911-worthy phone call situations. Quit your complaining. This was as much a CYA, cover your ass, as it was malicious compliance. I wanted to make sure everyone knew I was not indifferent to my neighbors or trouble in the neighborhood. And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel, but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously, and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.